one word to describe your experience right now, and a number of what you feel, if any.
Oh, it'd have to be 0. And it's unusual.
Beautiful.
Unusual and beautiful and 0.
Okay, everyone, Daniel's given me the nod. Very kindly, he has offered me his introduction, so I didn't have to do any homework. So I'd like to introduce you to the person presenting this session today. Daniel moved to New Zealand from Canada 7 years ago with his lovely wife Ashley, 2 cats and 1 dog. And querying Daniel last night, he comes from Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the eastern side of Canada. At present, Daniel is going for his 3rd Dan Black Belt in Haedong Gumdo, a Korean sword martial art, and actually runs a club in Whakatane presently, where he's trained with a world champion. Daniel and Ashley are fathers to 3 boys, Oliver and 16-month-old twins, Felix and Leo, who are probably sleeping at present.
They are, hopefully.
In the apartment. And as a hypnophysio, Daniel teaches how to use hypnosis to reduce pain for health professionals in New Zealand. So I'd like to give you a warm welcome to Danyel Degenhardt, please.
I'll take that. Thank you. The story I'm about to tell you ends with me witnessing for the first time someone change their experience of phantom limb pain using hypnosis. And the incredible thing is that it took about 10 minutes. 4 years ago, I was studying hypnosis, and I was using it to learn how to reduce pain for myself and for my clients. You see, I'm actually the most selfish physiotherapist that you'll ever meet. I have 2 conditions that the primary symptom at diagnosis is pain. The first is Melorheostosis. It's a rare 1 in a million condition in my right hand that started to affect me when I was 10 years old and progressively got worse into my early adult life until I started to do a bit more for myself and find out more about the mind and the body, going to become a physiotherapist and then a hypnotist for myself. So everything that I do for myself first, and if it works for me, that's when I bring it into the people in my life. The other condition I have is actually a more common condition called Hemochromatosis. It just causes a high blood level in the body, or iron level in the blood, and that was causing progressively over 7 years, worsening headaches and fatigue until I finally got that diagnosis and got treatment for it. So I've had experiences of pain from as early as I can remember. And like I said before, if it works for me, that's when I bring it out into the people in my life. And for this weekend, you are the people in my life. I know my twins are hopefully sleeping from my wife up there, so that's sorted, and I'm here for you this weekend. And just like I was 4 years ago for a volunteer at one of my Rethink pain workshops. It's a workshop that I developed to help to teach what pain is, how it works, and develop some self-management tools to manage that. And I always provided a hypnosis demonstration at the end of it to just show how powerful our mind is to either reduce or eliminate pain. The volunteer that put their hand up when I asked for a volunteer that time had a below knee amputation on one leg and an above knee on the other. And their primary concern was the phantom pain that started in the big toe where they first had their amputation. And it would often spread up the foot, up into the leg, and often then into the other leg as well. And at that time, I had never used hypnosis to reduce phantom limb pain. And yet I knew that I could do something to help this individual because I had already been using mirror therapy to help amputees reduce their phantom pain as a new grad physiotherapist. And mirror therapy is a brain-based technique, and hypnosis is as well. So I knew, all right, let's go in and see what I can do in this space. I told them the definition of rethink is a reassessment, one that leads to changes being made. Are you ready to rethink your experience of phantom pain? And what that individual experienced was just first tuning into their limb. And with that, tuning in to their right big toe and that part of them, I got them to just close their eyes and then imagine first color that came to mind. Oh, it's a red. Okay. Take your left hand and reach down and grab all of the red, just that color. Once all of that color's in the hand, then bring it up in front. And then with that color, in a moment, just open up the hand a bit to see a little whirlwind of that red color, like a tornado. And once you recognize that color, then it was taking, in a moment, that whirlwind, that tornado, and moving it in the other way. But before doing that, to bring in the love of someone in their life. Bring in their face, see their face, hear their laughter. Just like hearing the laughter of my boys this morning when we went to the zoo. And that love is going to help to allow to change that whirlwind, to go in the opposite direction. Go in that direction that it's impossible to be the same color, the same as what that part of what her was. And then, boom, right back into that limb. And put all of that new color, which was a blue, calming color, back into that limb. And what happened is that she opened her eyes, like, wow, I can move my toe. It went from stiff and rigid, like a pretty constant 5 out of 10 pain, to being able to move and wiggle and no pain. And I thought that was absolutely an incredible example of how improving the function of a limb reduced the pain. So hi, I'm Danyel Degenhardt. Thank you for that introduction, Mark. I am the hypnophysio, and show of hands here, who experiences phantom limb pain? Quite a few. Now, I'm going to ask another question. Who here would like the opportunity to reduce or eliminate that phantom limb pain? Yeah, quite a few. In today's session, I want to help as many people reduce or eliminate their phantom pain. And when we were first organizing this presentation over 2.5 years ago, this is what this presentation has been in the making, I told Mark Bruce that my goal is to help as many people as possible. And he said, if you just help one person, it'll be worth it. That one person could be you today, couldn't it? And if you're watching in the recording afterwards as well, it could be you as well. Because this presentation, I've created it in a way that whether you're here live or watching the presentation afterwards, sharing it with a friend or a family member who might be affected, that they'll have that opportunity as well. First, I'm going to teach you about what is happening in the brain when you experience phantom limb pain, and then how hypnosis can help improve the function of your phantom limb. Then I'm going to ask for anybody who wants to come up. I have a few chairs, but we can bring up as many people as want to come up to have that potential to reduce or eliminate their pain. I believe that that individual I helped 4 years ago reduce and eliminate their phantom pain in that moment, that I have that potential to help support you to do that today. But I've actually learned quite a bit over the last few years, and I'm even more positive that that potential exists. First, we need to have an understanding of what phantom pain is. Just 1 second here. New markers, they're a little stiff. All right. No brain, no pain. I know it's a little cheeky. I first learned this from the late Peter Rousseau. He was a neuropsychotherapist in Australia, And this statement actually came from Nobel Prize-winning research done on sea slugs, of all things. Sea slugs have very simple brains, only about 10,000 neurons. And in comparison, our brains have about 86 billion. Mark, I think you got a little bit more than that. Our brains are much more complex, but what the researchers wanted to do was provide an experience that was potentially painful for that sea slug, a little electrode that gave it a little shock. And then afterwards, they then examined the change in the brain. And what those sea slugs did is that after experiencing a shock from an electrode, they then would avoid that electrode. It makes sense. But the really amazing thing is that their brain actually rewired. It changed in order to create that learning experience. So from that research, they presented that if you have a brain, whether it's a sea slug or a monkey or a fish or a human being, if you have a brain, you can experience pain. No body, still pain. This is something that I know all of you understand. That idea that just because a limb is not there does not mean that you cannot still experience sensations, movement, and pain in it. So if we're looking at if the body is gone and you can still experience pain, then we need to focus on making changes to the brain. Now, this idea of changing the brain, let's bring a very big brain, spinal cord going down. So this is a brain of an amputee. And within this brain, there were some researchers just recently, or in 2008, there was researcher Rosen and al. They did a study looking at the neurophysiological processes underlying the phantom limb pain experience and the use of hypnosis in its clinical management. It's a bit of a mouthful, that study, but what they did was did an intense examination of two clients who had phantom limb pain. And they used PET scans, positive emission tomography, where they use specific isotopes to look at specific areas of the brain that are active when an experience occurs. So what they found, what they wanted to find was what areas of the brain were active when the person was experiencing phantom pain. And the research showed that there's two parts, a motor and sensory cortex that was active whenever that client experienced pain in their affected limb. Now this motor and sensory cortex, this holds all of the sensation, all of the movement that you have for that affected limb in your brain and your whole body. And the motor and sensory cortex, it regulates the intensity and the quality of every pain experience you have, whether it's in a phantom limb or in another part of your body. And the hands, for example, is about midway through, and it takes up about 1/3 of the real estate. And then the next biggest area is the face, which hopefully nobody here has had that amputated, your head, because that would end badly. No brain, no pain. But the other big part, the third largest, is the feet. And when it comes to the face and the hand, they're actually next to each other. They're neighbors in this motor and sensory cortex. And it's something that helps to explain the phenomenon of someone who has a hand or arm amputation may be able to touch parts of your face and be able to feel it in your limb. Now, does anybody have that experience here? It's a very unique kind of, in the back. And that That's because these areas are so close to each other that when the limb is gone from an amputation, it doesn't mean that the part of the brain representing it just goes, oh, limb's gone, all right, see ya. No, it's going to stay there. But now there's this mismatch of what the brain understands and what is physically there. And this mismatch kind of blurs the lines between these areas. So the face can be sometimes connected to the hands. The other part for lower legs, the feet are right next to the genitals, which means that somebody might have a feeling of their foot filling up when they need to urinate. But it also helps to explain how some people like feet a little bit more than others, and hey, no kink shaming here, it's just science. So this area, this motor and sensory strip in the brain is active when you experience phantom pain. And if we recap, phantom pain occurs when there's this mismatch between the area in the brain and the physical limb that is no longer there. So what is hypnosis and how can it help at this level of the brain? As a hypnophysio, I show people how to exercise their mind and their body. To me, your phantom limb is part of your mind, your brain, and is part of your body. Hypnosis doesn't simply eliminate phantom limb pain. What it does is it helps to get this motor and sensory cortex to be lighting up and active in more appropriate ways. It helps to integrate your brain to your body, and it helps to improve the function of your phantom limb. Now that's a key part, helping to improve the function of it, and we're going to come back to that. The volunteer 4 years ago, I don't think it was the hypnosis that decreased that pain. No, it was because her toe went from stiff and rigid to freely moving. That then had a side effect of the pain reducing. One definition of hypnosis that I really like is from James Hazelbrigg. He's a US trainer and hypnotist that I've worked with a little bit in the past, and he describes hypnosis as real events. Sorry, let's restart that one. It is imaginary events creating real results. An imaginary event creating a real result. For that volunteer, the imaginary event of changing pain to a color and moving and changing, bringing in love, putting it back, all of that activated so many different parts of her brain that it created this real result of being able to move her toe more easily. But it's more easily understood when you're watching a movie. And it's a really intense, awesome movie that you're so involved in. And you know that those are actors. And they are pretending to do something. And yet, you might feel so sad that you'll tear. That imaginary event happening on the TV in that movie creates a real physical change in your body of sadness and even creating these tears. Or you might be so happy that you'll laugh. So that imaginary event created a real result inside of you. And movie makers are just really great hypnotists. The best ones just understand the process to engage someone's imagination. Research has shown that hypnosis can actually affect many different parts of the brain, from the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala, anterior cingulate cortex, all of these terms that just make me sound really intellectual. That's why I said those. But the one that's important is hypnosis can affect this motor and sensory cortex. There's a research done, Casiglia, in 2020. So this was the recent study that found that clients reported a complete absence of pain and a deactivation of the sensory cortex during hypnosis. Now this is really amazing because when someone is experiencing pain, just any experience of pain, that sensory cortex is going to be active. It's not something that's unique to an amputee. But when you get someone into a focused state, using their mind, their imagination, it can actually help to deactivate that area that's strong and connected to that pain experience. And I think that's amazing. That's showing that when you're doing something that you love, that you're engaged in, whether it's playing the guitar or going in and having a great conversation with someone around you, like this weekend, you're engaging different parts of the brain and you're deactivating that sensory cortex. And hypnosis is a way to get into, and an entryway into that space. And in a way, like this is why as a hypnophysio, my goal is to help improve the function of your phantom limb. I don't go in with a goal of reducing pain. That's my kind of catch title to grab attention. But the goal from today's session will be to improve the function of your phantom limb. And this is a similar process of just any injury. If I was to walk down and roll my ankle, and I have structural changes to my bones and muscles and damage done, and I go to a physio will do some manual therapy, maybe give you some exercises, some advice, and as my strength improves, as my movement improves, as my function improves, what happens? Pain levels decrease. That's the ideal, that's the goal of any kind of treatment. And when persistent and complex pain, these are the people that I'm working with mostly in my practice, the people that have pain for months, years, or even decades, then it's less to do about their affected area and more about the changes to their brain. It's about dehypnotizing some of those pathways of pain going in and being strong. I think the biggest problem that any health professional who is helping to support someone with phantom pain or someone who experiences phantom pain, the biggest mistake that's made is looking at simply reducing the pain. A medication that can help to reduce pain, yes, that's great, but it's looking at using that opportunity to improve the function of the limb. And that's how sometimes it can be a very challenging experience for phantom pain, and how there's a wide variety of all these different kinds of techniques from mirror therapy that looks at changing that sensory cortex in a similar way. Things like acupuncture, which is a treatment that you're able to put needles in a part of your neck and your shoulder and your arm that can help to kind of open those pathways to the hands, that can help. Or with hypnosis, it doesn't necessarily matter what technique, what strategy. From my perspective, it's about improving the function of your phantom limb. And if you're a geek like me, you might be wondering what was actually happening in the brain of that volunteer 4 years ago. This is the kind of stuff that gets me excited. Because when that person was experiencing their phantom pain in their big toe, there's a part of their brain that was active, very active and strong, that was representing that pain. The first thing I did was ask her to tune into that part. Then it's what color would it be? Now we're moving from a sensory experience to the occiput, a visual experience. And it was a red. It's easier to change a color than a sensation, isn't it? So that she then drew that color into the hand, which now she's using her motor cortex of her unaffected hand, bringing in and pulling that space. And then I asked her to hold it in front of her and then notice a whirlwind, a tornado. Now that tornado is going to be a movement center in the brain, but it's a different area than what was active when she started. Then it's boom. Change it once you've brought in that experience of love and you've changed that direction and it's impossible to be the way that it was, and then boom, right back into that area. There's another great hypnotist and trainer, Freddie Jacqueline. He defines hypnosis as elicit an emotion, provide a suggestion. I love the simplicity of that elicit emotion, provide a suggestion. Because that's why I bring that idea of love, that person that you love, that support person in your life. That is going to activate a massive different part of your brain. And after all of that experience, then boom, back in, the toe could move. And that's because different parts of the brain, in those moments, she was creating new pathways, which I think is just really fascinating. The brain can change quickly. And I tell my clients that any one session, whether it's with me or when you're practicing a technique at home, has that potential to make a big change. Because the brain can change itself so quickly and so amazingly. Just even last night, I was having a conversation that has already shifted my understanding a little bit more. And I've been using the term phantom limb. And going forward, when I'm actually working, and even in this volunteer session here today, I'm just going to be saying your hand, your foot. Because isn't it easier to be able to improve the function of your hand or your foot, even though it may not be there physically? It's still your hand and it's still your foot within your brain. And by just even changing the language, I've never, ever had as a physio, someone come up the street and say, "Oh, I rolled my limb. Can you help me?" No. Nobody uses that language. It's a clinical term that we've brought into this space. And I think that makes it more difficult to treat and to change. And then you add phantom in the front of it. Whew, that makes it even more challenging. So when we're going through this experience, or when you're practicing this stuff at home even, just move your hand, move your foot, move your knee, your ankle. And you may find that it's going to be much easier than if you say in your mind, "I want to move my phantom limb." In a moment, I'm going to ask for any volunteers to come up. And if you're watching the replay, you can just kind of come up into this space as well. If you are, a couple safety considerations, if you're pregnant, so Mark, you should be fine on that one. Sorry, I keep picking on you. If you're pregnant or if you have other health conditions that would concern you of coming up in front of other people, then that's okay. It doesn't mean that hypnosis can't help you. It just may mean that we want to take a more specific approach with a thorough assessment. But if you're otherwise happy, healthy, ready to make a change to your phantom, now this is where I'm already needing to change my language, to your foot, your ankle, your arm, your leg, to be able to just improve that function, then you're going to be able to come up here and do that up. So this is that opportunity. If you'd like, come on up. If there's anyone in a wheelchair or a chair, we can bring that up. Anybody who would like to have a hypnotic experience, come on up. All right, so I'm going to get you in this spot here, please. All right. Come on in, thank you. I've got one more here, coming on up, yeah. And if we have anybody who can come up the stairs and just in behind here, we'll move this, get that chair out of the way. There we go. So you can come on, I know. He's got magic hands. All right, you can have a seat there, and all right, you can have a seat there, sir, and I'll just bring another. Well, this is where I love having this space. If you want to come up here. Cool. Now, anyone else? Now, this is something that if you don't want to right now come up, remember, this is going to be recorded. And the idea is that you'll be able to follow this once I post it online and share it within this community. You'll be able to follow through this, the same process. Now, before we get going, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mark, since I've been picking on you a little bit, can you come up and just man the whiteboard for me? Thank you. Give him a round of applause. Mark coming up to work on the whiteboard here. So we need 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Names, pre, and post. All right, because I like research, and what I want to do is actually get to know a little bit more about each of you in a very simple way. In a moment, I'm going to ask for your name, and you'll just write the name on the top aisle, and then 2 things that I would like you to do. Right now, tune into that part of you that you experience that pain in that foot, in that leg, wherever it is, in that hand. And you're going to do 2 things for me. One is note what that experience of pain is, from 0 being nothing, 10 being the worst that you have experienced in that limb. And then the second thing that I'm going to ask is just one word that kind of represents how that feels to you. So it can be a word that describes it, or the first word that comes to mind, or it could be even a nickname that comes up. Anything that represents that part of you. And we're going to write those down. We're going to check in now and then at the end. So I'm going to start on the front and work my way. So,
Just one question first.
Yes.
Is it pain we're having now or pain we experience at random?
that's a great question, and it is your current experience. Yeah, and because remember, the goal here is to improve your function. So that's why I'm not just getting a pain number, I'm looking at that word that describes it. Okay, so starting with yourself.
Bob, severe tingling.
Okay, so tingling, we'll put in severe tingling, so pre. Yep, severe tingling. And, yep, good. And then what number would that be?
5.
Yep, okay. Thank you very much for that, Bob. Goods. And then next aisle over.
Ellen, and it's tingling as well.
Tingling,
Yes,
yep.
and I'd say about a 6 or 5.
6, yeah,
Yep.
okay. So tingling and a 6. Thank you for that, Alan.
Michelle, 7.
A 7. And what word comes to
Annoying.
mind? Annoying. Yeah, and that's great. And that's because this is, pain is not just a sensory experience. It's an emotional experience as well. The definition of pain from the International Association of the Study of Pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience. So that's, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Janice, 9, and it's strangling.
Strangling, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Cherie, it's burning, gosh.
Gosh, yeah. And then what number?
I wouldn't use other words, but.
Yeah. This is
Gosh.
gosh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No one's sworn yet.
Hey,
Well,
we're all
yeah,
adults
yeah,
here.
we'll be
We're all adults here, so
Yeah, right now, probably about a 5.
5. Okay, thank you for that. I'll come up onto the top here.
Lisa,
Lisa, nice to meet you, Lisa.
probably a tingling as well.
Tingling, yeah, and
And about 6.
6. Okay, thank you for that, Lisa.
Graham, annoying, niggling.
Yeah. And then what number?
Probably a 3.
3.
3, 4.
Yeah, so we'll go 4 with that. All right. So, just looking at that experience, the tingling, annoying, strange, gosh, and those numbers, I just want to first thank all of you for coming up and being up in this space with me. Now, in a moment, we're going to go through what it's called the hypnotic induction. Induction as in just going into a space. And that space is a space where that change can be made. And you're going to have a similar experience to that volunteer, but with a couple tweaks to adapt to a group and with everything that I've learned over the last 4 years. Now, if you've never experienced hypnosis before, has any of you experienced hypnosis? Just, okay, a few, yes, no. And that actually doesn't matter. What matters is bringing a bit of curiosity in. And even better, a bit of childhood curiosity. Well, it's one of the things that having my twins and going to the zoo and seeing how every new thing is just amazing and beautiful. And that curiosity is what I want you to bring into this session. If you simply do that, you'll have a great opportunity, a potential to create that change. So in a moment, I'm going to ask all of you to simply take a few deep breaths. And before that, I want you to, can you imagine making a fist or curling your toes so hard that you couldn't turn on the muscles anymore? Yeah, of course you could. That's sometimes what that experience is like. Well, can you also imagine relaxing your hand, your foot, so much so that everything just doesn't move? And I know that's a challenge, but just pretend, and then pretend you're not pretending anymore. Be curious about that, because that's the level of relaxation that I want you to experience within this. I'm going to ask you to take a few deep breaths. As you take a breath in, you're going to watch. I'm going to come. Apologies for standing in front, but you are the most important people for this right now. When you take a deep breath in, you're going to watch my hand come up, and as you breathe out, your eyes will close as you watch my hand down. Simple. And every time that you close your eyes, I want you to imagine relaxing the muscles around your eyes so much so that they just won't even want to work. And once they get so relaxed, then you can even boing your eyebrows and it'll just be stuck and locked and closed, being in that space that change can happen. Ready? Taking a deep breath in, watching the hand as it comes up, and breathing out, following that hand all the way down, closing the eye. That's right. Breathing in, opening as you follow my hand back up. And as you breathe out, that fluttering of the eyes, as you just continue to watch that hand. Breathing in, and as that hand goes up, may even become more difficult as you breathe out to even just pay attention to it. The eyelids just start to get more relaxed, and whenever it feels right, you can breathe in, and the eyelids will just stay closed, and that's okay. And breathe out. And whatever you experience is appropriate for you as you take one more breath in and out. And you can close those eyes and relax them even more in this space, and allow that relaxation to find that place and position that is appropriate for you as you stay seated comfortably and safely in that space and time. And as you do that, just allow that relaxation to spread from your eyelids to the top of your head all the way down to your toes. And in that space and time, in a moment, I'm going to just come over and gently tap you on the shoulder. And when I do, you can simply go into that space even more, relaxing even more into that space, finding that space that's just for you as you go into that relaxation even more, just relaxing any tension through that space. That's right. As you just ease into that space and time. That's right. Relaxing the head and the neck, the shoulders, to just ease that space. That's right. And as you simply go into that even deeper, your unconscious mind knows of an even deeper, more focused, relaxed state. I simply like to ask you to go to that space now. That's right. And from this space of change, I'd like you to connect with that part of you that you experience that pain in your foot, your hands, wherever it is in your body. Connect with that part of you. And I want you to imagine that it's the first color that comes to mind. Notice that color. And as you do, I want you to create a little tornado within yourself That no matter where that color is in your body, that this tornado starts to bring it in and breathe in that color, that it sucks it in like a vacuum right into the center of your body. And as that process continues to pull every bit of that color, just that color, I want you to bring your awareness down to your buttock, your thigh, your legs, whatever feels the most grounded right now. And as that continues to happen, notice that grounding go even deeper, your awareness going through the seat, through the floor, down through to the center of the earth. Because as you root through like a large cordy tree, going down deeper and deeper into that space, you feel more stable, more connected, more safe. And with that connection to the center of the earth, that geothermal activity, bring your awareness back to that part of you. That part of you that's now this whirlwind inside your body in whatever way that's appropriate for you. And in a moment, I'm going to make a sound. And when you hear that sound, that color is going to go right through to that center of the earth. So prepare your minds and your body as you take one deep breath in and right through the floor, right through to the center of the earth, where energy can't be destroyed, but it can be changed. And that change of that color comes up through the roots that you've created, that bright, healing, white light. And as that comes up through the floor, through your body, right to your heart, to the source of that love, that connection. Because bring in that image now of that person that supports you the most. Feel that love connecting in every cell of your body. And as that spreads through that color, it might even be a different color of healing, of comfort. And as it spreads through your heart, pumps every ounce of blood through your body every minute. So just by spreading this color and focusing in this space, you're creating a change that's important. And as you do that, now just pay attention and notice that area, that foot or that hand that's affected, and just move it a little bit more. And as you do, I just want you to create that potential that to exist, to create that change. And Graham, I'm going to come up and just ask you, what's that movement like for you? Good, good. Thank you for that. And as you just play and move in whatever way that feels appropriate for you, kind of like you're breaking free, using that color, that calm, that space, to just create that bit more movement. And as you do that, I want you to take another deep breath and go even deeper, because we're not done yet. Whatever change you've created in this space, to just move that little bit more effectively, a little bit easier and more comfortably. We're going to go through another process that can help to just allow you to come back to this space and make it even more powerful. And as you simply sit in that space, I want you to imagine now that you're floating up through your chair, floating up through the ceiling, up through the sky, up through the clouds, into outer space, using that protective color around you. And as you do that, I want you to imagine now that you look over your shoulder and you see that pale blue dot of the earth. And that change of perspective can help you to change your perspective of this experience right now. And in between you and the earth is a target. A target that right in the center is the part of you, the source of any of that unnecessary and useless pain that you want to have complete freedom over. That potential to create a change in this moment in time that's going to be that catalyst for you to continue to change forward. All of that right in the center of that target. But you'll have to be brave, because when I make that same sound again, you'll shoot through that target into a space where nothing disturbs and nothing bothers you. But just for a moment, a millisecond, you'll experience that pain again until you go into that space where that love exists. And as you take that deep breath to prepare, and right through that target, that's right, into that space where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you. Feel the love of the people that support you. And with that love, bring more into that space as every cell opens up into that growth, that connection, as you float back down through space, back into this room, but looking at yourself from where you're seated in the audience, and just notice that a change has occurred as you bring in an awareness down through your body. And in a moment, I'm going to ask Bob, as you're focused in this space and everyone else can just continue to integrate and create the changes in their body, in their mind. Bob, I want you to tune in and bring an awareness down into your right foot, your unaffected leg, and notice that it feels really rooted and connected down to the ground. And what is that like?
Yeah, it's stuck.
It's stuck, isn't it? And what feels more stuck, your toes or your heel?
Toes, probably.
Yeah, and your toes are really stuck, rooted down. And imagine that flowing through your arch, through into your heels, and that rooting down gets so stuck, so rigid that in a moment you'll try to lift your toes and you'll find that they just get even more stuck and rigid. And if you try to lift up your toes, what's it like? It's really strange, isn't it?
Waste of time.
It's a waste of time. And you're a strong guy. And I want you to try to lift that foot and notice that you just can't. It's just impossible to lift it, isn't it? And now, bring that attention and your awareness over to your left leg, that prosthetic, that the heel is down on the ground, and it's rooted down into the ground too, isn't it?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, and that is rooted down so much that if you try to lift up your left leg, you'll find that it won't move either. It's strange, isn't it? And really try to lift that up. And then stop trying and just allow for that relaxation to spread through your body. Because this is an example of an imaginary event of that love and that Corey tree and rooting down, creating a physical change that you just didn't want to move. But now, allow for all of you up here right now to just move that hand, that foot a little bit more, a little bit freer. And in a moment, I'm going to count up to 5. Before that, on the count of 5, you'll be back into this space, fully alert. But before that, I want you to take a deep, full breath in and out. And right at the end of that breath, think of a word that represents how you feel right now. And as you take that first deep breath in, breathing out, and right at the end of that breath, gently in your mind, say that new word that represents how you feel. That's right. And then that second deep breath in, as you breathe out, and make it even bigger, make it even stronger in that space and time, and say it gently in your mind. As that final deep breath in, anchoring it even more, that word, that breath, as you breathe out, so you'll be able to come back to this space anytime that you want to continue to practice this movement to improve that function. And in a moment, I'll count up to 5, back into this here and now, fully alert, eyes open, feeling refreshed, like you've just had an hour massage, a hot spa, and watched that great movie that just made you feel awesome. And when you open your eyes and come back into this space and time, you'll feel even better to take on that next challenge in your life. 1, coming to the surface, 3 times more alert, more focused, ready to create that change before 5. Wide awake now. Wiggling your fingers and your toes, coming all the way, and just tune into your body. Now I want to go through, and we'll go through and just notice what's changed. So So we'll start with you, Bob. One word to describe your experience right now and a number of what you feel, if any.
Oh, it'd have to be 0. And it's unusual. Beautiful.
Unusual and beautiful and 0. So please, under Bob, write beautiful and 0. And Alan?
Relaxed.
Relaxed.
Satisfied.
Satisfied, nice. And what number?
About a 2.
2. Awesome, well done. Actually, round of applause for every change that happened. So a round for Bob and a round for Alan here. Thank you for that.
I'm feeling 0 and 3.
0 and free. A round of applause. That's awesome. Very cool. Great. Thank you.
Lighter and 4.
Lighter and 4. Well done. Thank you. Applause for that.
Took the pain from my right and put it in my left.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't have pain in my left.
Okay. So a change. And that's interesting because this is one of those experiences of...
I didn't like that.
What's that?
I didn't like it.
And you didn't like that. Okay. Now, this is something that afterwards we can do some more work to see how to continue that change. Okay? If you would like to. If you would like to. I get that look. And actually, we can maybe even see. All right. Up here.
Relaxed and probably about 4.
Relaxed and 4. Well done. Round of applause. And actually, round of applause at the end there as well, because that is a change. It's not the desired change, but I still want to acknowledge that work that you did, and I appreciate that.
Fine. Excuse me. Fine. And probably 1.
1. Fine and 1. Thank you for that, Graham. All right. 5, 0, 6, 2, 7, 0, 9, 4, 5. That was 0.
I didn't get Cherise.
Cherise?
My left one hurt more.
That left one. So what number? Yeah.
Probably about a 6.
6. All right. So that's important. That's okay. It's not okay. No. I apologize for that. What I meant to say. This is the thing with language, is the tool that I have, and it's not okay to have an increase. But what's important is to just recognize that your experience is unique, and your experience of pain is something that I went and used a technique in a global way to help create that change. And I was unable to do that within yourself because you're a unique individual that may need a unique approach, and that's okay. Because everyone else here, you're just as important and just as you're just as important, and you are deserving of that healing, and that's that worth of that healing as well. And then we go in the back, 6 to 4, relaxed, and 4 to 1. Now, I think it's actually, Cherie, I appreciate you being up here, and I am grateful, even though it's not the desired outcome, because hypnosis is not a magic bullet. Yeah. And no one treatment is a magic bullet. And that's something coming from me being an individual that works day in and day out with people with persistent and complex pain, and I'm not able to be that person for everyone. This is a realistic representation of the change that's possible within a technique that lasted maybe 10, 15 minutes. I don't know what that time is right now. Yeah. And I think that it's important to appreciate and acknowledge everyone. So I want to thank everyone for coming up here, and I want you all to head on back to your seats, feel that lighter, that movement. Please give them all a round of applause for coming up and doing this for all of us. And thank you, Mark. You did an excellent job scribing the experience. Yeah, you're free to move, free and easy to move in this space. One thing for each of the volunteers that came up here.
$1,000.
$1,000. No, this is the important thing. Even when I was kind of talking to people coming into this, I don't want any compensation other than the amazing compensation that Mark and the community of flying me and my family here. This has been a beautiful, amazing experience for me, and the love and support that I've gotten from all of you, that's my reward for this. But I want you to think of this word that you've created. This is the first change, that word and that breath can be a place to continue that practice. This is where hypnosis turns into self-hypnosis, that any time that you want to practice and move freer or easier, just breath in, out, and that word. And that's going to help to do that on your own, because this is just one experience, that catalyst to show the change that's possible within a few minutes of just using your brain to create an imaginary event, going through a process that then created a real result of improved function and less pain. And I want to thank all of you for being here, the volunteers, for coming up, and anybody who watches this afterwards. Thank you for just engaging in this, because this is a different way to think about pain in an amputated limb. That idea of improving function, and that is the goal of it, is something that I haven't seen very much in the research and the education when it comes to supporting. So I want to start a discussion in this space. This is something that for the first time I'm bringing up in this space with all of you here, and I want to create a discussion about how it can help, how it can work, and what parts don't. Because that's going to help me to support people going forward, but it's also going to change the language around it. We heard from Paula at the beginning, and that word disabled, which is something that I never used that word, but she did such a great job at showing it's not the individual that has the disability. It is the process, it is the organization, the building, the workplace, that's the disabling component. And using that language to showcase that, I thought that was a beautiful reframe in the use of language. And even if all you do from today is change talking about your affected limb and just start saying my foot, my hand, instead of saying my phantom limb, that may be enough to create more of a positive change for yourself. I also want to thank my hypnophysio community that's definitely going to be watching this recording afterwards. I teach health professionals and recently did a course just a few months ago. And this is the first presentation that I actually had people to actually get some feedback and how to tweak this, how to put the language and the wording in this, and to get the biggest potential for change to occur. And that my hypnophysio community, so thanks to them for that. Now in a moment, I'm going to open things up. We're going to have a few minutes for just some conversation if you have questions or just discussion points in this space. And we'll go from there. So, is there any questions, anything that comes to mind in the back? Yeah?
So this is all well and good, but what's the story with funding?
Okay, all well and good, but what's the story with funding? Great thing to come back to funding. So I am a physiotherapist first. The health professionals that I teach for hypnosis are physios, psychologists, doctors, people first, and then there are some hypnotists as well. So I am just like any other physio. You can see me or any of my students as physios, and we're just using hypnosis as a treatment modality. Just like physio, I learned acupuncture. And you can come to me for acupuncture even though under ACC. So that's a great question. When it comes to funding, yeah, I'm looking at...
Not ACC.
Pardon?
If it's not.
And if it's not ACC, that's where it then comes into, I do have some physios even in the public health system. What I look at doing for presentations like this, that the reason why I'm recording it is that I want to provide the opportunity for a shift, a starting point. That even if you're in the audience here and you didn't come up, you may even tune into your hand, your foot, and notice you can even move it a bit better. It's that idea that this isn't rocket science. The stuff I do with hypnosis is just engaging the mind and actually doing the same thing as I would as a physiotherapist, but without the affected hand or foot. If you go to a physiotherapist for a sprain of an ankle or a foot, you're going to be asked to do this exercise over and over and over and over, the stretches, the movements. And yet we kind of forget that we can do that when it comes to an affected area of an amputation as well. Close your eyes, breath in, out, and just tune in and just wiggle. Start at the most proximal, the closest to your body, your core. Move that limb first, the knee, then the ankle, then the toes. Or the shoulder, then the elbow, then the wrist, then the fingers. And just practice it. I'm a martial artist who owns a business and has 16, 17-month-old twins, actually. I wrote that down. They keep going faster and faster. And I'm going for my 3rd Dan black belt in 2 weeks, I think. I get to physically practice maybe once or twice a week for a few minutes, really. But other than that, I'm mentally practicing the movements, the patterns, the cuts, the blocks, the stabs, all these different things. I'm practicing in my mind over and over any moment that I get a chance to. And that's what you can do with your affected area as well. So that's a great question about funding. There's never enough of it, but I'm hoping that this can just be a catalyst of changing the way you understand and view your affected area. Any other questions? Yeah, in the middle.
Oh, no, you're right. But for the recording, please ask that. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm and your passion that you've brought to us. I think it's interesting, or is it possible, and I know it's a gentleman here can answer that as well, at the limb centres being made available, the 5 outlets there, training the physiotherapists?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I invite any of the limb therapists. I'm going to be putting another course in the end of this year, Hypnotic Pain Principles and Techniques, so that's a little shout out for myself and the organization, so thank you for bringing that up so I could do that. But yeah, anybody's able to come into this space, and I have had some early conversations with some of the limb centers prior to this presentation, but I think that's another reason why I'm recording it. Hypnosis is not a normal thing that is brought into the traditional medical model, but the way that I bring in the science of looking at the research and the body of evidence to support hypnosis, actually some of the techniques and processes I do as a hypnotist has more research than a lot of the stuff I do as a physio. And just having an understanding of that, I'm hoping to get more physios, more doctors, more psychologists, understanding that hypnosis is just a term that it's similar to mindfulness, similar to guided imagery, it's similar to mirror therapy, it's similar to meditation, that those inward kind of focus in a different way is what hypnosis is to me, and it's finding those underlying processes and understanding it from a neuroscience perspective. That's what I love. So yes, I'm hoping that anybody at the Limb Center, they're more than welcome to strike up a conversation and come into this space for sure. Any other questions? In the front?
Just wondering if, as you're doing this for your affected limb, can you also do it for other parts of your body that might be hurting at the same time?
Oh yeah, that's a great. So the question of can you not just do it in the affected limb, but another part of your body as well? Now that's the tweak of even what I guided the volunteer 4 years ago versus what I did here today. This idea of having a person and reaching and changing, I took that more internally. And it's that color, that what you may do, the affected area of the amputation might be a red, but maybe your shoulder's a bit sore from moving things or anything like that, maybe that's a green. Just bring that all in. And that process, so this technique is called a kinetic shift. Kinetic because you're moving and you're shifting from one representational system to another. And there's so much freedom to it because it's just about engaging different parts of your brain, starting with the pain, the physical, sensory, motor cortex, and moving through. So that's a great question, and this is a form of a grounding technique that I often provide for my clients. The idea that you just connect, ground, bring in that whirlwind, send it through, bring it back up, boom, just like that. My clients, after practicing it for a while, that's all it takes. And it can be for stress, it can be for anxiety, for feelings of depression, and it's not a bullet, it's not a thing that kind of helps everyone in every way, but because everyone here had different experiences and yet could follow those underlying principles to create a change, when you have one-on-one or you're practicing it yourself, that's where the real power comes. I always recommend and give that potential that my clients do better at their home, lying in their bed, practicing these techniques than me, because sometimes I get in the way. That's one of the things about not being able to see into someone else's mind or brain. I'm not like Professor X of the X-Men. I can't mind read. I'm just calibrating someone's experience to the best of my ability for that. So that's a great question, and the underlying principle is what you can use for any kind of a process. That grounding technique was an early technique I used for myself when I was having challenging clients, not from the clients, but challenging environments, that I would go in and I'd feel just thrashed afterwards. That space was like a vampire of kind of energy. And I would just go through that, and from whatever, whether it's just something in the brain or I've connected with something else, I don't know, but I felt better from it. So that's a great question. Any other questions? Yep.
Sorry, just quickly, could we do that while we were having phantom pain?
Yeah, definitely. Can you do that while you're having phantom pain? Yeah, and two things with that. First thing is, yes. But you also want to practice when you're feeling good. The All Blacks don't make their selection team and then go right for the championship. They'll start with practicing and learning how to work together in different ways, in different environments, and then pick an easy team to go and beat and go to Australia first and then go around the rest. I'm from Canada, but I still know how to beat up on the big guys. We got States as the big brother for us. But yeah, you want to practice it when you're feeling good. When you're already feeling relaxed or lighter, that's a great time to practice it, because you're going to be able to do it safely, more effectively. And the idea of doing it for a different part of your body, maybe your shoulder is just a little bit sore. Okay, go through and practice, eliminate it on that. And that's where, start with the little things and kind of working yourself up. I'm a coach in this space as much of anything as a hypnotist. And it's these underlying principles of just engaging the mind and going through these different steps. It's sometimes impossible to not notice that change. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. Any other questions? We have some really great questions here. We're running near on the end of the time, so I'll take one more if there is one. And if not, I want to thank all of you again. I'm so grateful for this experience, and for Mark and Lorraine and the organizers for inviting me and my family into this space. We wouldn't have been able to go to the zoo without all of you. And I really do appreciate that, because man, the giggles they had when they looked at the monkeys this morning was so precious. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, because the more we all heal, the more we all heal. Thank you. Hi there, it's Daniel the Hypnophysio. Thank you for watching and engaging with this presentation. Whether you're someone who experiences phantom limb pain or a health professional who supports someone who experiences it, I have a few things to share with you. The first, if you experience phantom pain or pain within your affected limb, let me know what your thoughts on this presentation is. If you engaged in the hypnotic part, how did it make you feel? Email me at info@rethinkpainworkshop.com. There'll be a link in the description below, because I just want to get more feedback. A presentation like this, to my knowledge, hasn't been done before in this format. To get people together and do a group hypnotic session live to help to reduce or change the function of a phantom limb hasn't really been done, and I want to get as much information about what worked and what didn't. Because as you'll see from even watching that presentation, sometimes, even with the best intentions, there needs to be more adaptation and specificity to make it even more effective. So please, if you've, whether you engaged in it or not, if you have any feedback, please let me know at info@rethinkpainworkshop.com. Now, if you're a health professional who works with someone with phantom pain, I want to invite you to come to our Hypnotic Pain Principles and Techniques course. It's going to be coming up on November 19th and 20th at the Rotorua Hospital, and there'll be a link in the description below as well. If you have any questions about it, you can flick me an email, the same email as well. But I'm keen on teaching more physiotherapists, psychologists, people working in this space, because as you saw from the presentation, a shift occurred. Changes were made in that moment that for some it was just in that space, and for others that change continued onward past that presentation. So I think this is a valuable area to spend some more time and focus, and I really want to support this community to the best of my ability with the skill set that I have. So thank you again for engaging with this presentation, and the more we all heal, the more we all heal.